Hi, this is Mark Zamoyda with Curious Inventions. We're looking at the Cool Text Effects software, and this training video is titled Publishing to Your Website. So let me start up the app here. Alright, so let's put together a quick animation. I'll just center this and let's make the color red and bold, and we'll pick some text in animation. And we'll pick a text out animation. And you would work on this until you get it how you'd like it to look in your website. When you're ready, well, let's just make sure it loops. When you're ready, you hit the Publish button. And let's take a look at each one of these tabs here. The first thing is Settings, and it's going to publish a JavaScript file. You can change it by clicking on the Select File button, but we'll just keep that there for now. Also, you can check the Save Sample HTML file. Most likely you're not going to need an HTML file, but it's really good for testing, making sure things work in the browser. The reason why you wouldn't need an HTML file is because you already have one. You can just take this JavaScript file and put it in with your existing website, as I'll show later. The other option here is the target ID. And the target ID is the ID of the container in your HTML. So like your div ID would be text animation, for example. And we'll take a look at that soon. So let's publish this by hitting Publish Now. I'll minimize the app and pull up our file system. And this sample text animation HTML file was created. So let's open that up. And there's our animation running, so it looks fine. Let's take a look at the actual HTML that was generated for this. I'll go to the file and just open it with an editor. And you can see it created a div with an ID of text animation. That's what we had specified in our application over here in our publishing properties, text animation. And you can see the scripts that are included that you would need to include with your own website. It requires jQuery, this first one here, and it requires jQuery UI, and it also requires the Cool Text Effects script, which you can see right here. You can just copy and paste those out of here or out of the application itself to put in your own website where you want to have your animation. Let's also look at the app itself, and we have two other tabs up here which are really useful. Let's click on the HTML first, and this is essentially the HTML file that we were just looking at, but you can copy it just by clicking this button here. So now it's copied into the clipboard, and you can paste it wherever you'd like. The other option is JavaScript, and this is only the JavaScript which gets written to the .js file. And it's a little bit cryptic, but all you need to really do is copy it and paste that into the website where you'd like to have it. So probably the most common way this app gets used is you don't really need to save the HTML file unless you're testing, and you also don't really need to save your .js file if you're going to embed the JavaScript directly into your website. All you really need to do is go to JavaScript and copy all of that code and then paste that directly into your header. Now, some of the common pitfalls that you'll see, let's just take a look at the editor because it looks pretty clean. Probably the biggest problems that people run into are not including the required scripts. So you definitely must have these 3 scripts. Otherwise, just nothing's going to work. If you have an older version of jQuery, that's fine. You can try that out. And if that doesn't work, just upgrade it. And let me put a new line in here so we can look at this in a little bit more detail. We just put new lines after the commas. But in all these parameters, one parameter that you probably always want to look at is target. And the target is set to text animation. So there must be a div, and there is, called text animation. So when things go wrong, the two things you want to check, make sure you have these scripts, and make sure that your target is actually a real div within your the body of your HTML. You probably also want to set some kind of size to it, and you can see in the style section up here, like we are setting a size to it. But most likely your page will already have a size, and it might have a picture and that kind of thing. If you do use the application to load a picture, as we saw earlier, I'll just load this up again. Yeah, basically that picture is only for show while we're creating this. You're going to need to, when you publish it, you're going to need to make sure that your website already has that picture loaded and set somewhere in CSS or in JavaScript or something. Like when it gets published, all it really does here is set the width and height, and it doesn't create the image because your website is going to be storing its images in its own location.